Richard Cotton. Wait a second here. Motherfucker driving pretty wild. Okay. Yeah. Hold on. Let's put up. Okay. Yeah. Good afternoon. Good afternoon. Yes. You know, there's and I mean, the question was asked on my timeline today. Well, I mean, I don't know, it might have been today or yesterday. It was in regards. It was the discussion on the increasing prices of the increased, increasing too is already up there. The increased price of gas, right? So it was like, there was criticism, as always. I have criticism toward our beloved Kind Master Biden, and the question was asked, how does the president affect fuel prices? Now, obviously, there will be an extreme amount of collusion. Unfair and illegal influence if Kind Massa owned an oil company and was the president and was able to raise and lower the price of his fuel per the whim per his wishes and whim. What you have to understand is how in policy and legislation and speculation of policy and legislation can cause industry to do things and react in a manner in which may be beneficial to them without a care or concern on how it may be detrimental to the American public. And what I learned as those who were vetting Kind Master, as if there's much vetting to do. He's been in office for Methuselah years, and as far as politicians are concerned, in their vetting, they said that Biden is an altruistic president. And I had to get in a definition, like when you don't know the definition, when you don't know what a word means, don't feel ashamed to pick up a dictionary and look up the word. Altruism means like, being a leader of a country, but you have go ahead, Mr. Truckman. You have concerns over another nation's or country's interests, and it would seem that they may or may not be that the amount of benevolence that you show another nation or other nations may not seem equal or even existence in comparison to what you give to your own nation and that you are supposed to be the leader of. Now, back to the point of how this points to the effect on fuel prices. Now, Russia is a huge producer of oil, and now we know the evidence has proven due to this crackhead son, there were prior dealings with him in Ukraine. He was the big man with Ukraine, and they got all this money was exchanged, but it's not really being discussed. But okay. So, Kind Master decides to intervene in Ukraine because Ukraine, I guess, it wants to be taken into the UN. Russia is not a part of the UN. For Ukraine to even for the UK, the UN to even consider taking in Ukraine, it's. You see this fucker? You can't see him. I got the camera turned around. Damn. He coming out the parking lot of the Portillo's, the fat He's not a black person, you know, and he's not a white person. Fat motherfucker came out the Portillo's and just swerved around. Right, he looked at. They had to look at me. He pulled right out in front of me, and I'm coming in up. Nevertheless, what was I on, man? The fuel prices. So Russia, a huge producer of oil. America decides to intervene with the fact that Ukraine claims that they want their independence, and what they're doing is they're balking. You know, I don't know what gave this president, their president, Vladimir. I guess isn't his name Vladimir as well. I don't know what gave their president the notion, you know, that was the inspiration to go ahead and make this move this time. What influence would have made him, you know, decide at this particular time to buck against Russia, you know? So back to the fuel part. So now America has decided, our kindly Master Biden has decided that that we have to send resources to the billions and billions of dollars to a country that has proven evidence that they have Nazi affiliation, or Nazi not that Nazi's just another flavor of white supremacists, but you know, they have affiliation. You know, there's supposed to be something that, you know, when you deal with those people like that, it's supposed to be something that's really dangerous. You know, you don't want to deal with those Nazis. But we send our tax dollars over there, and meanwhile, what our leadership has decided in the defense of Ukraine, they've decided to, you know, we're going to put sanctions on Russia. We're going to take all our big American, our Western corporations out of Russia, and boom. So Russia still is one of the largest producers of oil. And, you know, from my understanding, they say that America exports most of its oil, and you know, it imports the oil for us, which I never really understood, if I know correctly. Yeah. I had to bend quarters into Candyland, you know, to earn my bands and take my stand. Oh yeah. But you know, so Russia is still a large producer of oil, and what Russia has decided to do at this point is to stop accepting the petrodollar. Now, the petrodollar, much like from my imagination, I'd have to do further research. It's much like the American dollar, the fiat dollar. You know, it as far as material value, I mean, it, you know, has weight behind it. You know, say for example, silver or gold or bronze even. Not so much for the American dollar, and I guess in turn not so much for the petrodollar, because America trades in oil in petrodollars. So, with Russia deciding not to utilize the petrodollar and going more of a more tangible currency, that means it's going to take more petrodollars to purchase whatever oil is available to be purchased. And where does these costs go to? These costs go, you know, first I guess these costs go to whatever large oil producer, you know, I don't know whether it may even go to Shell or Mobil, or, you know, however other ones you wanna name. But it goes to these sub oil companies, I guess, Exxon, BP, and they're not going to absorb that cost. They're going to exploit that price increase. The price increase may not be to the point where they have to raise your gas to $5.50. It may be where, you know, in order to have an even raise up and I guess you could say a price increase, they could just raise it up to $5 or something. But what they see is that, well, hell, the larger oil companies, the ones who sell us this shit, the ones who sell Shell and Exxon and all them people that they're good petroleum, they say, well, they're making this much more off the petroleum, then we need to get us a taste. And that taste is passed off to, through the pump. I don't know, I guess you might tell me I'm wrong, and I would hope that you provide evidence, because this is just my assertion based off the information that I reviewed. A point I want to make is that the African American black person has to be very careful about imbibing upon MSNBC and CNN sound bites, because it is propaganda in its rawest form, actually. But I've said this for you. It's been years. That stuff, like, it just is really like a dog whistle. I guess how a dog reacts to a dog whistle when that stuff is on in the background. It just, and not to say much more different about any FAUX. It was just media anyway. It's propaganda. I go to UPI, United Press International. I try to go to places where there's less influence of editorialism on my information. But I guess if we had done that, as a collective, then we probably wouldn't even have to deal with comments about these high prices. Which like, hey, these trucks that have to transport our goods and services, our food and things of that nature, they roll off of diesel. So with an increased cost of diesel, due to the fact that there's a conflict in Russia and there's a lack of available oil to be purchased for petrodollars, that price is raised for the truck drivers and whoever ships the goods to wherever store that you buy them from. Does this make sense to anyone? My African American black peoples? But I'm at Candyland, where I take my stand and I make my bed. So yeah, man, you better be blessed you got a job, even though you just pretty much just, they say at the crap game, I just broke even, man. I barely broke even. Peace and love, y'all.